Welcome to the Nerd Party.
They can travel anywhere in time and space.
Off we go into time and space!
So all of time and all of space is sitting out there.
Welcome to Time and Space, one married couple's adventure through the Doctor Who universe. I'm Jessica Nunn.
And I'm her constant companion, Phillip Gilfus. So, darling, how far are you in your Doctor Who rewatch? You finished 10.
I have finished 10, yes. I'm about halfway through the second season of 11.
You're just going through fast.
Yes. I watched a lot today, actually, while I was doing some work. So, yeah, I'm doing a lot about River Song at the moment.
Anything, well, I guess very quickly, last we talked, you were still going through Donna Doctor, and then I guess you went through the specials and then End of Time.
Yeah, I skipped the specials because I'd seen them fairly recently. So
yeah, and then now you've got a little bit of 11 and Amy. Anything that struck out at you as you've revisited these?
It's interesting that with the 11th Doctor, his companions have names. In terms of the girl who waited, the impossible girl, right. You know, of course I haven't gotten to Clara yet, but I know what she's going to be called. So yeah, that's interesting that his companions have titles of sorts.
And did you feel, because, you know, you sort of witnessed the Russell T Davies to Stephen Moffat change in administration. So did you feel it was that much of a difference? I mean, a new Doctor, of course, you get that reset, but, you know, the subtle things.
So is that the switch? The switch is with the Doctors? A little bit. It feels like the 11th Doctor tends to have more overarching stories. Mm-hmm. You have the adventure of the week, obviously, but then there's also, you know, like the silence.
And the crack in the wall.
And River Song's history, which I haven't done a whole lot of, but I know is coming up.
Herstory.
All of those sorts of... Don't do that. All of those sort of long storylines, which I tend not to be as huge a fan of. Possibly because when I watch, I'm not always giving it my 100% attention. And so keeping up with... Don't shake your head at me. That's rude. So keeping up with an overarching storyline on top of the weekly episode tends to get me confused sometimes.
Cool. Well, I look forward to you finishing up. And since we don't actually have a lot of 12, we'll have to figure out maybe how to acquire that so you can continue.
Yeah, we've got some on video. Or not video, that's proper old school, isn't it?
That's right.
We have some on Blu-ray, I think. Oh, that reminds me, last New Year's Eve, when we went up to Virginia and we were watching Doctor Who, or the plan was to watch Doctor Who on Blu-ray. And
left the remote at home, and apparently DVD players need remotes.
Yeah.
Or Blu-ray players need remotes.
It was a sweet idea,
the thought
anyway.
that counts.
Exactly. So... shall we talk about Doctor Who, the movie?
Yes.
The 8th Doctor and his initial appearance in Doctor Who, the movie, continues to be an interesting and debated part of the Doctor Who franchise. This 1996 attempt to revive Doctor Who via a TV movie was a ratings hit in the UK, not so much in the US. Since this was a joint venture of 20th Century Fox and the BBC, it was primarily Fox that would make the call whether this backdoor pilot would lead to continued Doctor Who. It was not to be, and the series would remain dormant until the 2005 renewal with the 9th Doctor.
So I thought it was interesting, now that you've seen this, you sort of have to retrospectively timey-wimey this in your head, with... You can imagine my surprise. You know, this is obviously the only 8th Doctor appearance, 1996, and so we go through the entire, all those intervening years, then we get to the revival, 9, 10, 11. So you can imagine my surprise when, 50th anniversary, there's a little episode that Moffat's released, and it's the Night of the Doctor, and who should appear? I'm the Doctor. but not the one you were expecting. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Paul McGann! And so...
Again, because he's in everything.
Yeah, but like after all those years, I was just so... not surprised, but glad that they had remembered their history, because, again, this is it. For the Eighth Doctor. That's it. No more. There's no... I mean, other than maybe some graphic appearances, like when you may have saw Eleven's first episode, when they flash all the faces of the Doctor.
Yeah,
but anyway,
of course. Yeah.
But we can talk about that guy. We're being timey-wimey, but I was just so glad they brought him back. Of course, he had his different look, because Paul McGann looks different.
Yes.
And they sort of have, in the audio dramas, that's how the Eighth Doctor now looks. But anyway, but let's begin with a little more broad view.
Okay.
So Doctor Who comes back after, since 1989, it was canceled and sort of had ended. And so 96, here it comes. Doctor Who is back as a TV movie.
Yes.
And so I think I watched this when it came on. And I think this was really before I knew Doctor Who at all. And I mean, I can remember watching it on Fox, because that's who co-produced it. And I don't know necessarily what I made of it back then, being all of 15. But anyway, viewing it now, how does it, as a TV movie, do you think?
It was so TV movie, wasn't it?
Yes.
So bloody American.
Now this is an interesting thing. When we went to London and we're at the Who shop, there was a poster that we talked about, I think, in our episode when we recounted our visit. But they had a poster of the Doctor Who movie, signed by, of course, Paul McGann and Sylvester McCoy. And I think I brought that up to the person that we were talking to. Of course, that was his personal opinions, not that it was of the Who shop. And so that was, the criticism is that it was too American. But he's like, look, it was a British director, it was a British writer, it was co-produced by the BBC, which I'm sure is all true, but...
It was so bloody American.
So expound upon that, darling.
Yes, I think the whole inner city, the gang violence, the master being Eric Roberts, and I like Eric Roberts. I have nothing against him as an actor, but he felt so misplaced in that. Or maybe it's Paul McGann who was ultimately the one who was misplaced in all of that American world. I just didn't, yeah.
Hey, I think there's a line from Grace that she's like, oh, and you're British or something. He's like, oh, I suppose I am, or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, and maybe that's the problem. I mean, it is the Doctor, so he's not British, obviously. But he sounds British because he's with British people. It's like the moments in the Van Gogh episode with the 11th Doctor, where Amy's talking to Van Gogh, and Van Gogh says, "Oh, that accent. Are you Dutch like I am?" Because he has a Scottish accent too. And so it's like because their accents match, it's this little joke. And so then for him to be transplanted into America and have a British accent, I don't know. Yes,
and I think there were, I'm not going to sit here and poke the whole movie, but because I think it is of its time. Of course, you can say a lot of classic Who, and even new Who is of its time.
Yes,
and,
yeah.
So that's not necessarily a critique, but sort of the bigness of it is, but in a TV movie way. Like, I'm just imagining Grace in her dress for half the episode.
Yes.
It was a little much like, look, not that
she has surgery in that dress. They just throw some scrubs on her.
It was very, not Chicago Hopi, but you could see a medical drama doing that in the 90s.
Yeah. And it felt a little bit like In the Heat of the Night, sort of cop movie, kind of that grittiness that I don't normally feel from Doctor Who, and maybe that was my problem. And whether that's actually down to it being too bloody American or made in 96, it could be a combination of those things.
Or a Fox TV movie.
Yeah, I think that it was not the best of combinations.
Because in 1996, if I recall, and it's a few years ago.
Go ahead, please. Once again, tell us how young you were.
No, but I'm just saying it was a few years ago. But Fox wasn't as big as it is now. I mean, it was sort of like,
No,
oh,
that's
Fox,
true.
haha.
Yeah.
They're a real network, you know. Of course, I mean, they are, you know.
Of course, now we say that, but no.
but as far as cable, you know, it's Fox, of course, everyone. But, you know,
yeah.
it was sort of the fledgling redheaded stepchild, I can say, being redheaded, of TV. Like,
yeah, you're absolutely right. It was the bottom. It was the fourth one, and it was at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We're getting, you know, think about In Living Color and things like that.
Which I love, by the way. But yes.
Yeah.
But it was very offbeat or very, you know,
a little
fringe.
bit quirky, a little bit fringy, yeah. Which then, once it became more mainstream, I guess the CW, which was at the time was the WB, that goes a little fringe.
And then you have UPN and, you know, then the explosion more after that.
Yeah.
But, so let's kind of get a little bit into the story. We're not going to, like, go through the whole movie, per se. But let's just go through some of the characters. So there's Grace, who's our companion for the evening. I thought it was interesting that in the credits, because again, this is a TV movie, and they have sort of guest appearance. Like, it's a movie. You can't have a guest appearance in a
film. That's ridiculous.
But anyway, what'd you think of Grace as our sort of new companion, at least for this series?
I liked her as a character.
We get a doctor, right? Just like Martha.
Absolutely. Didn't like the romance. Didn't feel like that was particularly necessary, except it's a TV movie, so they all have romances.
I'm sure, even back in the 90s, well, you know, a little young for it, but I guess, you know, in the 2000s when you were young, I'm sure you meet a strange man who pops up in your car, you take him home, right? That's just standard stuff.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was doing in the 90s.
I was kind of like, is this the pre-9/11 society? Is that what it was?
Stop making society pre-stuff.
But yeah, I thought she was both intelligent where she needed to be, and the I don't know what's going on, you know, which is always the companion. She wasn't damsel in distress, right? Which I always look for in a companion.
Yes, not too much.
Right.
Too much. She had her moments.
I mean, she was mind controlled by the master, but it was
really easily. Like, really easily. Like, he winked at her and she was like, okay, I'm going to do whatever you tell me to.
But we still, you know, see her being a competent doctor.
Yes,
I believe she was a cardiologist. Anyway.
Yes, although she does kill him.
Yes.
So, you know, competency
Yes, well, the two hearts, it will always get you.
Yes, I've heard that as
well. Though it was
well.
a very, like, House or ER with, the boss doctors throwing it away. And I was like,
yeah,
surely doctors are not
and then her quitting
yes.
over it. And yeah.
And then had the weird romance, her, like, ex-boyfriend. Like, that was a whole weird thing.
Yeah, especially
she leaves him at the
because
opera.
we only see him that one time when she has to walk out of the opera because she's been paged. And he throws a big old temper tantrum and takes the sofa. And I just think, did you not know what you were signing up for, mate?
See, it was the 90s, darling. Back then,
women didn't have careers. Yes, no, you're absolutely right. He was in the right. He deserved the bloody sofa.
I mean, gosh. I mean, this is going to sound silly. Internet is just around. I mean, you know, it's been around, but, like, just really getting to be a thing. Yeah, anyway, I'm just...
Yeah, no, I was at uni at the time, and we had internal internet. We could send emails to other people at the university, but that was pretty much it.
And then we had Cheng Li as the other character. I almost sort of classify him as the master's companion.
Yeah, to an extent.
When we watched this separately, because we're obviously having marital problems.
Yeah.
But you texted afterwards, I have so many questions and issues. And I'm like, you know, we want to save it for the podcast, of course. But I said, you know, hit me with what you think. And you had some opinions about Mr. Lee.
I did. I found his character very interesting. He is a hoodlum at the beginning. At the very beginning,
he's
shooting
people.
things.
Yeah.
Yes. And then a rival gang or something like that then shoots at him. And it's only the doctor's timely arrival that saves him. And in the process, the doctor gets shot. So this gangbanger decides to call an ambulance, wait with this stranger, ride in the ambulance with him, stay at the hospital until he hears the news that he's dead, and then steal his stuff and run away. And I found all of that really incongruous, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very strange.
Also, what would you do with gold dust? Can I just throw that out there?
Yeah.
Like, if someone just walked to me and like...
Well, maybe that's what you do with gold dust, is just throw it out there, like the ghost of Christmas present.
There you go. But I'm just
that.
like, here's gold. I'm like, where do you... You don't take that to a bank. I don't know. What do you do with 2 bags of gold
Jewelry
dust?
shop?
I don't...
Leprechaun
I see.
Valley.
Leprechaun Valley. But then again, it's America. Where are you going to find a decent leprechaun?
Well, no. I mean, I think if it's New York City, you're going to have...
But San Francisco.
Oh, is it San Francisco? I did not remember that. Well, in that case, I got nothing. I was going to say the New York boroughs, there's going to be a leprechaun alley somewhere. But San Francisco's not known for its leprechauns.
Not at all. I mean, that's why it was more of a Chinese influence. Not that they don't have a Chinatown in New York, but that's why it's more at the Bay Area.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I just assumed they were racist.
Well, we'll leave that for others to decide.
Yes.
Now we have Eric Roberts. I was going to say the Master. I'm like, I don't know. It's just Eric Roberts. But we have the Master. I don't know. And I think with Doctor Who, as opposed to, say, my other property, Star Trek, I'm very hard on. You know, continuity. Yes, you can bend it, but really, guys, you know what you're doing. Doctor Who, I'm not as tight about. You know, they can play with it. That's fine. It's all timey-wimey. Right. And that's fine. I'm not. But so with the Master, I'm like not trying to figure out where he fits in the Master's lives. You know, because we have the Ainley, her last name, Ainley Master, that was sort of the actor who played it for years and years during the Classic Who era, from the 5th Doctor, I believe, to, of course, the 7th Doctor. So now we have the Master, and they throw a lot of name dropping of like, yes, the Master was, I guess, put on trial for his crimes on Skaro, home of the Daleks. And that was like, okay, well, maybe they just chose Skaro just because, you know, and then I swear halfway through the movie, there like, yeah, the Daleks are the ones who executed him. I'm like, what? That doesn't make any... What? Anyway, and then they just put his ashes or goo in a box and somehow he's still alive, which is fine. It's the Master. He does that. Yeah. Turns into a snake.
Yeah, we can live with timey-wimey.
The Master does all that. But anyway, so he inhabits Eric Roberts. I'm sure that character had a name. But anyway, and... He
was the ambulance guy, wasn't he?
He was.
The EMT, yeah.
Which the Master has done before, because of the Ainley Master. Sorry to call him that, but just so you know what I'm talking about. That's sort of how... I remember that... I can't remember exactly, but I do the 5th Doctor story where he sort of took Nissa's dad, I believe, and it's off my top of my head, and sort of transformed into his body. So the Master has that ability. That's very continuity high. But what did you think of this version of the Master? Because, you know, it's a role to play... I mean, as a director, you always play big when you're the Master.
Yes.
I mean, I think Missy maybe was not as big. You know, I mean, she is, but she sort of contains it. But I think all the other Masters, John Sims, and then the classic ones you've seen tend to be, you know.
Yes.
But what'd you think of this Masters?
I sometimes struggle to see Eric Roberts as anybody other than Eric Roberts. I'm spending the entire time going, Eric Roberts, okay. Which I don't think is necessarily a criticism of him. It's that may just be my quirk. I did like, and I know we're going to come back to this when we go into the TARDIS library, but I did like the continuity of the last time we saw the Doctor or the last time we saw the Master with the 7th Doctor and the cats. It was these green eyes, and we see that again in this. So that gave us that little bit of a callback that Doctor Who's so famous for, that I so enjoy. So that was a nice...
I mean, the Master suddenly has the power to mind control people. That's a new one, but whatever. He's done lots of stuff in the past again. I'll grant you for this episode or this movie. Sure,
yeah, I don't think that skill reappears. Maybe that was Eric Roberts' skill.
Yeah,
and
well, he keeps getting work. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It was a nice, lovely article about him in Vanity Fair, I think, that I sent you.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and those are mostly the main characters, you know. So.
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Now, some continuity, which, and I know this sounds like I'm mansplaining, but I don't mean to, but that you can connect. So the Eye of Harmony. If you remember the deadly assassin with the 4th Doctor, remember the Burned Master was trying to... So that's the Eye of Harmony.
Ah.
Now, what the Eye of Harmony is doing from Gallifrey is suddenly powering the TARDIS.
Yeah. Timey-wimey. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, which again, I don't get that. I mean, if you're a diehard Doctor Who Whovian, and I could see the continuity may bother you with that one. But anyway.
I just kind of skip over those bits in my brain.
It just looks like, we want to use something from the past. So like, well, they couldn't wiki something in 96, but whatever. Ask G's. I don't know what they were doing back then. They were firing...
Using that little paper clip that shows up when you're using
They fired up
Microsoft
Netscape.
Word.
And then...
Connected through their phone line.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, so, they're trying, and that's fine. One thing you talked about, since we've gone through the characters, one character that's always in Doctor Who is the TARDIS.
Yes.
And you had something to say about the TARDIS control room.
Yes, it's the first, and again, running into the rewatch, I've just gotten to the one where the TARDIS had been blown up and all of that stuff, and so they're redoing the bedrooms. The Doctor talks about redoing Amy and Rory's bedroom, and Amy and Rory say, "Oh, can we not have bunk beds this time?" And he's like, "Bunk beds are fun." And Rory says, "Doctor, do you have a bedroom?" And it's not answered. That question goes completely unanswered. And that was what was interesting about this. We see the 7th Doctor and then the 8th Doctor at the end. And the center of the TARDIS is like a living room. Or a smoking room almost. It's got the fireplace and the music.
Well, see, the American audience needed to know this was a British character, darling.
Oh, well, if you need to let people know that.
That's why he was drinking
always,
tea.
Yes, and wearing a smoking jacket. He may at one point have said, "Pip, pip," which always clues people in. So, yeah, it was the first time I'd ever seen the TARDIS used as a living quarters. We know there's a library, we know there's a swimming pool, it used to be in the library, we don't know where it is now, we know there are corridors, but we don't ever really see any of the other rooms. And this time, of course, it does also harken back to the 4th Doctor, where you had the Professor.
Yes.
And his TARDIS was his office.
In Shada.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, Shada.
Very interesting. Yeah. It reminds me very slightly, because on the TV movie, obviously, they had a little bit of a budget. Not a lot, but they had a little bit of a budget. Reminds me a little bit of, and you haven't seen it yet, I don't think, the 4th Doctor, because he was Doctor for a while, he had sort of a leather almost console near the end that he started using, so you'll have to look out for that.
Well, that's kinky.
Yeah. Well, as we went into the 70s and
yes, I suppose so.
But yeah, I did think it was a nice touch. If you look at all the TARDIS consoles, they're usually a little more sci-fi-y. Even in, like, say, the 12th Doctor, who has a bit of a library for a TARDIS.
Yes.
But it's still TARDIS-y console-y.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Has a chalkboard.
Yeah, so very tactile.
Yeah.
This one's like straight up living room, and there's a TARDIS control in the middle of it.
There just happens to be, yeah.
Which is fine, but I just don't like this desktop.
Yeah, and maybe that was an attempt to sort of calm down some of the sci-fi to make it more palatable to North American audiences.
Yeah, because
that may be really snobby of me to say.
Well, I mean, it almost borders, and this is where we get into our divide, it's almost a little more fantasy than sci-fi. When you talk about the Doctor Who, you said you don't like the sci-fi as much as the other
Yes,
one.
absolutely.
So, there's some time, but not really. It's more there's a giant snake and you got to open a thing and mind control, and I guess that's sci-fi. But
yeah, that part felt, in fact, the whole thing to me, because we didn't get the interesting aliens other than the snake and things like that, and I do prefer the more fantasy orientated. I like it when they go to Shakespeare or Van Gogh or other planets as opposed to astronauts and
on the moon
or the June.
But I noticed that the TARDIS itself, and again, you have to sort of backwards remember this, pre-New Who, this is sort of that. This is sort of
say that 3 times fast.
This is the Oliver Cromwell of Doctor Who.
Oh.
The interregnum period here. So, but the TARDIS itself looked kind of rickety. I mean, the actual shell they used, I'm like, did you pull that out of storage? Like, for all I know, that may be the classic TARDIS, for all I know. But just sort of like, I would be afraid to touch
Also,
it.
to be fair, as soon as it shows up, gangsters blow holes in it.
Yes.
So there's that too.
Yes. I thought it was very subtle. I know we're kind of going all over the place. Very subtle opening titles. It's sort of like, sort of the traditional.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I say traditional because it's that was sort of the first modern time vortex. It's not just the static swirly kaleidoscope. You actually get a little bit more of what we would see later in 2005.
Yes, and it didn't creep me out quite as badly as that kaleidoscope oftentimes does.
Mm-hmm. But any other sort of aspects of the movie or the story before we get into the doctors themselves?
Half human?
Well, we're going to get into the doctors.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes, trust me, we will get into that. First, I just wanted to start quickly with the seventh Doctor. So Sylvester McCoy, when they do Doctor Who revival or whatever you want to call this, you're always scared nowadays when your favorite property is being done as a movie or whatever, reboot, is this a reset button? Are we throwing everything out the window? But for Doctor Who, the TV movie, they're like, no, we're continuing on. We're going to get the seventh Doctor, McCoy, we're going to do a regeneration. We're going to do the whole bit, And so though I was a little worried watching this because it has been a while since I've watched it. I'm like, does he have any lines in this? Because they're just sort of, it's heavy voiceover in the beginning, which I'm not too much of a fan of. But it's McGann who's doing the voiceover when it's still McCoy, which was like, why don't you get Sylvester McCoy to do the voiceover? Anyway, I'm sure there's probably
Did he have lines?
A little bit. Very little.
I was going to say, because he comes out of the TARDIS and they shoot him and he dies.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much... Oh, no, because he does...
In the hospital.
Protest. Yeah, doesn't want to go under the anesthesia and things like that.
But I thought it was interesting. They did sort of... When we first see him, he's a little more muted because he's not wearing his sort of jumper or, I don't know, call it sweater vest with all the question marks that you see on the TV series. He's a little more muted, dark tones. But then when he gets out, he does put on the hat. I'm like, yes, there he is. That's the seventh Doctor that I know. And one thing I was sort of anticipating, like, oh no, is that, the TARDIS appears, gangs, like, the Doctor steps out, and I'm like, that is the worst, dumbest, cheap Doctor Who death ever. But of course, as I rewatched it, it's not the gang that kills him, as you say. It's the doctors. Like, he probably would have
Oh, yes.
lived.
Yeah.
I think he was almost
if
healing
they'd
him.
left him alone.
He basically, like, jammed something into his heart and killed him. And I was like, wow, that's... Doctors killed him.
Yeah, that they were doing some sort
The
of
probe.
thread thing, yeah.
So I thought that was sort of a weird and interesting death. And that, the anesthesia almost stopped his regeneration, he said.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting. But anyway, I was glad they got the seventh Doctor.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, it's one of the things that I love about Doctor Who is that no matter how much time has gone past, chances are excellent that if you call an actor up and say, hey, you want to make a reappearance in the show, they're going to go, yep, unless they're Chris Eccleston.
Yes. But he's an actor, darling.
He is indeed.
So yeah, like I said, it's a sad goodbye to McCoy, who I actually have a good part in my heart for the seventh Doctor. Because, in the grand scheme of things, he was only Doctor for a short time.
And at least he got a goodbye.
That's
true.
That's
when
true.
we come to the TARDIS library.
Yeah, not everyone gets a goodbye.
Yeah.
So, we have the regeneration. Now, what do you think? This is perhaps the most unique, I would say, regeneration.
In terms of doing it in a body bag?
Yeah, and the, stretchy face and the lightning and the, because all the, again, this is the interregnum, so I don't know whether they call this Classic Who or not, but Classic Who, you sort of have the fade, usually. Mm-hmm. And then with New Who, you have sort of the quantum leap. Yeah, but this one was sort of a little bit different. And in case you didn't get, darling, that this is New Life, because I think it's probably confusing, we're going to show Frankenstein just so you can get the metaphor that it's a new life going.
That's so American.
Yeah. Well, a TV movie, I would like to say, in defense of The Land I Love.
But yeah, I found that because, again, and maybe it's, for New Who people, who have never said, but I was just like, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess that is one thing that it is hard to view this. I mean, I suppose you could watch it again and try to view it that you don't know anything about Doctor Who. And because they don't really be like, oh yeah, when he dies, I don't know if they actually say that. I don't even know if they say the word regeneration. Maybe he does, but I think you just sort of have to go with it if you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I guess so.
And I wonder if that's a struggle of this TV movie that it didn't catch on. Because if you know it, you know it. Maybe that's why the UK ratings, because of course they know what Doctor Who is, versus America, which had low ratings because maybe they just didn't get it. But anyway, so let's talk about a new Doctor. the 8th Doctor, Paul McGann. So we get a new Doctor with new abilities.
Yes, and he steals his clothes from a locker room.
Now, in case you forgot, darling, from earlier in the movie, they wanted to remind you that one of the characters was going to dress up as Wild Bill Hickok, or whatever it was. Buffalo Bill.
Buffalo Bill, I think it was.
I
don't think it was Wild Bill Hickok, but yeah.
So luckily there was a costume party going on. Now, I do like, of course, we had to get the call, and they did it. He opens the locker. What's the first thing he pulls out? Is a scarf.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes, that's right.
Yes, Fourth
Doctor's scarf.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we at least got a nod, which, that's what we got to appreciate. Because, the Doctor getting his wardrobe, I think that was always a cool. You never know. How is he going to get the new look?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And since he's not anywhere close to his...
He's quite naked at this point.
He's quite naked and not anywhere near his TARDIS, so needs must, I suppose.
Luckily, a costume party was going on, so he could dress like a Victorian...
Cowboy.
Character.
Cowboy. He's
Well, the jacket's the cowboy.
Buffalo Bill.
But, yeah, so...
Yeah, it's a little bit muddy.
On the nose.
But, yeah.
Right. Anyway, so, but I don't know, and then, of course, this being a new regeneration, you have to deal with him not knowing who he is. Like I said, new regeneration, Doctor goes crazy, that's pretty typical. But, of course, you don't really get a sense of who the Doctor is. But I think you get a little bit from him, but I don't know. What'd you think, other than, we're going to talk about his special abilities and even his special origin, but just the character. What did you sort of think of the 8th Doctor, what little we saw?
Yeah, he was all right. I liked what he was doing with it.
Had some, dry humor, or not dry, funny stuff, but still serious. And
yeah, and I have a little bit of a special place in my heart for this guy anyway, because I feel like he got the short shift.
Yes.
I'm just like, aw, you did one 90-minute episode and then you were gone, and that makes me sad for you.
Sort of a weird asterisk in Doctor Who history.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I was so glad he got to come back for the 50th to sort of acknowledge, yes, he was the Doctor, everyone, and just as much as anyone else.
Just as much as anyone else. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So, new abilities. Let's screw it. Let's go with the headline. Half human.
That's what they say.
Half human.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you remember, I also brought this up at the Who shop. And that's where the gentleman sort of went into the history of establishing what we think we know, episode 1, it's Bill Hartnell. He's like, yes, I'm a Time Lord from Gallifrey. No. He's like, no. It's like, they mention like Time Lord in this episode, and Gallifrey doesn't get mentioned until like, this other episode, like, a decade later, and then the 13 Regenerations isn't until the 4th Doc, and so and the 2 Hearts doesn't come along, and so this sort of building the story of who the Doctor is. So we've never said he wasn't half human, why does he keep visiting this planet? You think it would have been brought up before then, but I don't know, what how do you, because I think you have just as role as any other fan, Jessica. What do you think, is that something you're like gonna put like, oh, he's half human, or I don't know if that fits into my continuity?
Yeah, I don't think it fits into my continuity.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay. I can bump over that with relative ease and move on from it and go, it's the one with the asterisk beside it.
Sort of the record scratch for the movie. Maybe there's some other moments too, but that's sort of when you're like, what? Because they say it twice. And you're like, oh.
Yeah, I do remember bumping on it at the time going, huh?
Now, of course, if you ever have a problem, I always remember the 11th Doctor, who says the first rule concerning the Doctor always lies.
Yes, absolutely. I need you to trust me, but sometimes you lie to me. Of course, if I told you the truth all the time, I wouldn't need you to trust me. Yes.
Now, I guess, because I can, play with that. Anyway, but, so we have a time telepathic Doctor who can look at you and be like, oh, in 50 years you'll be doing this.
Oh, yeah. He
does it to Gareth, which is a 100% American name. Everyone here in America is named Gareth.
Yes. I sort of assumed it was because he had been in their time stream. I didn't assume it was a psychic thing. Although I understand, I appreciate the fact that, but I feel like that's what they were trying to do. It is strange that he was in the psychic, in the time stream of all of the people that he was surrounded by.
Because for a moment, I feel like there is a moment he tries to do it with Grace, and she's like, "Oh, don't! I don't want to know."
Yeah,
he's like, "Don't
no.
you want to know?" She's like, "No."
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I think they were trying to convey timey-wimey.
Right.
And it came off looking psychic.
Right.
So they didn't explain it very clearly, but I felt like that was it, that they had, run into each other in the future.
Okay. I can retcon that for you.
Yeah, that was what I'm going with anyway.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. So I Doctor's on a motorcycle. All nice little action, I suppose, for the American audience.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of all, because there's not a lot to it, and that's not necessarily a criticism, but as far as story, because there's a lot you got to do. You got to introduce characters, you got to introduce concepts, and all these things.
And again, all of that's a hard sell when you're...
With commercials, of course.
Yeah. When you're introducing all of the new people, because you don't just have to introduce the new people in this movie, you have to introduce who Doctor Who is to an audience that doesn't have that knowledge. I mean, Doctor Who was playing on PBS. It's not like nobody had the knowledge of it. But in terms of trying to hit a mainstream American audience, it's a hard sell. Mm. It's a hard sell.
And so we get the version at the end of just the Doctor sort of bookending, just back listening to his broken record.
Yes.
That says time. Because I don't know if you got it, darling. He travels in time.
Travels in what?
Time.
Yeah. There were a few...
Heavy-handed.
Yes, I think that. I feel like perhaps the writers didn't give the audience as much credit as they deserve.
But that was the 90s, of course. Well, I say that.
Yes.
Eventually, a little series called West Wing would premiere 2 years later. That tended to be a little more ahead of its audience.
Well, there you go.
But, as all writing in TV and TV movies evolves, this was sort of par for its course, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, just briefly, I know this is sort of a thought experiment. Can you imagine a series? Yeah, you know what? This works. Now, hopefully this would be the BBC and not just Fox BBC picking this up for American television. I don't, that's a different way to pick it up. But anyway, BBC picks it up, and yes, we're going with the 8th Doctor. Because, of course, now you can reset it, right? Because Grace said no to the offer to travel. And, one of the few companions, I think, to say no. Well, Donna, like I said, Donna and Grace. And I'm sure there's a few others, but that's all I can think of off the top of my head. And then, you could do whatever you wanted.
Yeah, and I think if the BBC had picked it up on its own, there could have been some interesting things. I mean, Paul McGann's an interesting actor, a great actor, and I think that they could have moved forward. And I think even if Fox and BBC had picked it up, he can always, in the same way that Donna said no and then comes back. Mm-hmm. They could have done that with Grace if they had so chosen, or he could have gone somewhere else in America. Would have been interesting, I think, to see. We don't see a whole lot of American stuff in Doctor Who. Not
until the 11, when he sort of get the river, or starting
the
second
desert
series. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I do get the impression that Fox would have wanted it to be a little grittier.
Yes,
that would have been a bit of a shame. But I would have been very interested to see what Daleks look like in this particular
There would have been a redesign, no doubt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, none of this plunger and egg whisker kind of nonsense.
They need to be on skateboards.
Yeah. Aw.
It's the 90s.
Spray painting.
Like, if you've seen I don't know why this comes into my head, but like the Turtles movie, the first one. I feel like, I don't know when that came out, surely around the same time, but that's sort of, how that's sort of very dark movie. I mean, I like it. It's a great movie. But, that sort of tone.
The grittiness to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that's why people didn't love it, because they loved the Turtles.
Turtle power. So you feel you've gotten your Doctor Who movie and your 8th Doctor entry, and you feel you sort of filled in the hole there in the continuity?
I do, indeed. I'm thoroughly enjoying having the 7th and 8th Doctors standing on our coffee table at the moment.
Mm-hmm. I'm a little sad. This is the 11 Doctors toy set I bought over in London at Forbidden Planet, almost probably 10 years ago at this point, maybe a little less. But anyway, I am a little disappointed that Sylvester McCoy does not have his hat. That's to me, that's the quintessential Seventh Doctor. But nevertheless, I do like the Eighth Doctor because, of course, you don't get to see him a lot. And this is sort of the original TV movie one. I think they've made a new action figure to reflect his shorter hair and everything for the Night of the Doctor and the 50th anniversary look.
I feel like the Seventh Doctor's too tall.
Yeah, he was definitely a short guy. Though I thought
Yeah.
the Eighth Doctor was a little...
Diminutive
not the tallest
as well.
guy in the world either.
Yeah.
Seeing him,
But not as small as the
yeah,
Seventh.
Sylvester McCoy's
So, speaking of the Seventh, let's head into the TARDIS library, my love.
That's right. I thought since we were talking the Eighth Doctor and the attempted, though ultimately failed, but I'm sure it paved the way, Doctor Who movie, why not go with the last episode ever of classic Doctor Who?
Dun dun dun. We look at Survival, which premiered on the 22nd of November, 1989. It was a 3-episode serial.
And I thought it was very interesting because it almost comes very close to the actual date of the premiere of Doctor Who, which was on November 23rd, I believe, because it's when Kennedy got shot. Of course.
Oh, right. Yes, of course. I always forget that bit.
So, a little bit short, a few years short, 4 years short of an anniversary, but, and of course, let me do the synopsis real quick for Survival. The Doctor, the Seventh Doctor, Sylvester McCoy, brings his companion Ace back to her hometown of
Perivale.
And her old friends are being kidnapped by a race of alien hunters called the Cheetah People. It's a very original name. Who were shown the ways to Earth by the Doctor's old enemy, the Master.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. So, I think this may have been your first exposure to the Seventh Doctor outside of the Doctor Who movie.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, you know who Sylvester McCoy is obviously already. But anyway, what did you think of sort of the Seventh Doctor in the last hurrah, in the last bit of classic Who that would play?
Yeah, it was all right. It was very punk rocky, wasn't it?
Well, it's Ace, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and so all of her friends, and they're all hard and stuff like that. But I liked him. He seemed fine. Mm-hmm. To me, there wasn't anything that stood out in those particular episodes for me. Because we're getting it right at the very end, I didn't get to see a relationship build or things like that with Ace.
I always felt like it was more, adopted Ward. Which I was going to say that can be the companion relationship, but not always, really.
No,
but I think this is more
but the paternal,
the Ward.
You get
his juvenile delinquent.
Yes, absolutely.
And I thought it was very on location. This
in the quarry in Wales.
But even in the town location, it was very of its time. And that's not a criticism, but it's definitely 1989. Actually, I think if I'm not correct, 1989. I was just thinking to myself, in Doctor Who movie, I did remember in the beginning they flashed to 1999. I'm like, it's not. It's 1996 clearly. But yes, I thought it was definitely 1989 England. On location. So I thought it was sort of very...
You expect to see Dexy's Midnight Riders at some point running across,
But yeah, it's not a horrible episode. And certainly not the greatest. The Cheetah People are exactly what it says in the tin.
Yeah, I kept having flashbacks to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and Daniel Tiger.
Yeah, I can see that. Did he ride a horse, though?
No, I don't think he did, but that's what I kept coming back to, was a puppet, which was strange.
You're a puppet. But of course, we get the Ainsley's portrayal of the Master. Of course, his last portrayal of the Master. So it's not only do we get the last, classic Who, we get the last appearance of the Master, at least with this actor. And it's certainly not a goodbye episode. They didn't really let's write a goodbye episode because we're being canceled by the BBC. It was sort of like regular episode, we'll tack an end to it. And maybe they didn't know when they filmed it, for all I know. Maybe they had to add the voiceover.
Quite possibly, yeah. Because, I was like, okay, what happens next? And you were like,
that's it.
Nothing. So yeah, that was a little bit, particularly because we're so used to the Doctor's long goodbyes these days. So, and sort of tying things up with a bow, and we didn't get that with Ace. But,
little you saw of Ace, I mean, she was juvenile delinquent, but she tends to like to blow things up. So she can be damsel in distress, but then she can take care of herself for the most part. She's not being like, captured or whatever.
She's definitely a Cheetah People now, though, right?
And the Master is using Devil Cat to do things on Earth for him.
Yes. Who, in your opinion, at least, has made a return into our household.
That's right. That's why I don't trust him. He could be just another tool of the Master.
Pawn of the Master. That's probably what is happening with our cat.
Though it did remind me, not that I'm a big Red Dwarf person, just because I haven't watched it a lot, but it did remind me a little bit of Red Dwarf with the cat guy. So the Master with his teeth and the eyes, there was a little Red Dwarfy there for a moment. So the Master's suddenly turning into a cat, apparently.
Again, these things happen.
I suppose if you really want to look into it, there was a bit of the darkness inside you, and can you overcome that, and all that bit. So where the Doctor has to convince Ace to let it go, and you sort of have this weird to me, but I can go with it. The sister of hers that adopts her. They were enemies, but now they're hunting friends, and then she gets killed, and turns out, she was a human too that had gotten turned into a cheetah person, and sort of you have this sort of sister family, with Ace sort of being, doesn't want to go back to see her family and just wants to see her mates and all that stuff, and so it was interesting. But then you sort of get the little coda at the end, voiceover added, where the Doctor's like, what's next? This was sort of an attempt, in my opinion, out of a Star Trek TNG. All good things ending, where we're not ending, we're just continuing these voyages, and who knows what will happen
and
next.
You don't get to see any more of them.
Exactly. So more of a whimper than a bang to the end of Classic Who, unfortunately. But, well, speaking of good things, what do you want to talk about next week, darling?
Ooh, what are we going to talk about next week? Ooh, are we going to talk about aliens?
We are. We're going to be talking about our favorite aliens in Doctor Who, excluding Time Lords. Well, I suppose you could include some Missy's entries if you really want to.
Yeah, I feel like Missy deserves her own. No, I think aliens excluding Time Lords, unless you're going to talk about the guy from Shada or something, a one-off or somebody we don't see very often. I'm thinking of the adipose. I'm thinking of the green lizard lady who does have a name.
And a species.
And a species, I'm sure. Well, human, isn't it? Weren't they?
Well, she's from Earth.
Yeah.
So Terran. But anyway.
So, yeah, I'm thinking of characters like that.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about our favorite aliens that appear in Doctor Who. So feel free to let us know on the Nerd Party Twitter or on the Facebook page if you have your favorite entry you want us to talk about.
Yeah, we should maybe do another poll.
Yes, definitely. So look out for it. Until then, and next week, darling, you're my favorite human in all of time and space.
Aw, and you're my favorite alien.
This is BBC Television.